just want to get like your personal opinion, or what you're learning in school about renewables, and you think, are they our energy future?
I mean, I guess where everything's heading, right? There's only so much. You can only run off oil and gas for so long, right?
But I could see people like trying to make a push for that. I don't know if it would take over oil and gas, but I could see it like people trying to contribute to that more often, right?
Do you think that renewables are our energy future?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, if anything, that's like one way to do it if we wanted to like help save, like for sustainability and everything like that over time.
And do you think that the renewable energy industry has an environmental footprint? Do they have issues with environmental regulations or anything like that?
Not as much as oil and gas, I'd say.
I'm not too sure. I feel like if anything, it would be like a positive impact, honestly.
But it's the best option moving forward.
My grandpa was gonna get solar panels for the house, but like it had ended up like not being a good decision because it was just like it just wouldn't make sense like financially and stuff. So yeah.
What are the social consequences of renewable energy? Are there concealed costs associated with wind and solar energy? From habitat destruction to the exploitation of communities, we must confront the global adverse aspects of wind and solar energy. Advocate for transparency, accountability, and sustainability in the renewable energy sector. In the quest for cleaner, renewable energy sources, wind and solar power have emerged in Canada as frontrunners. But are these sustainable solutions truly the key to a greener future, or do they come with their own set of challenges?
My name is Brad Hayes. I'm president of Petrel Robertson Consulting. We're a subsurface geoscience and engineering company that works in quite a broad cross-section of energy industry applications. Wind and solar both have some really interesting properties that are considered beneficial. They're very low in greenhouse gas emissions once the facilities have been built, which I think is something that most people really favor. Again, once the facilities have been built, when the wind's blowing and the sun's shining, they produce energy very cheaply on a unit basis. For every watt of energy produced, it's very, very cheap with wind and solar when they're running at their best.
The energy is needed to be able to create new energy. I think the natural cycle of progress is something had to come before the thing that now is. And the energy source, which is what we're a part of, which is known as solar, had a very long runway. We started off as human beings hunting whales, for example, and then taking that fat and burning it in candles and utilizing that as some of our original sources of energy. And then that eventually turned into us developing as a species and then extracting oil from the ground from decaying organic material such as like animals or wood and things of that nature. And then we developed infrastructure in society and created laboratories where photovoltaic cells were created and wind generators were developed from motors that we designed. Eventually, the future might look completely different. We might not need these things. But based on our knowledge and what we know, the most infinite resource, though technically speaking nothing is infinite, is the sun. It's a nuclear reactor that's floating around in space that sends this energy to the earth, heats it, and provides life on this planet. So harnessing that is in a lack of better words, it's the ultimate flex. And the best version of that we have today is solar renewable energy, but it has to get better.
There's still a lot of advances happening with both wind and solar in terms of how efficiently they use the energy that's available to them. So for example, with solar installations, they're building these facilities where the solar panels can be tilted to track the sun and tilted in more than one direction so that they can make the best use of the sun at all times of the year and all times of the day as well. So that's really important in maximizing capture. The actual technology of the solar panels is always increasing so that a greater percentage of the energy from the sun is converted to electricity. With wind, it's quite amazing how much work goes into proper positioning of the wind turbines to capture the maximum amount of wind energy, and how to position them so that they don't interfere with each other when they are generating electricity. I think the other biggest advances with them are the materials that are required to build the generators that convert the raw mechanical power into electricity. They're the things that really need a lot of important critical minerals, but they are also, say, continually improving so that our efficiency is better.
Solar energy harnesses the power of the sun, offering clean electricity without the need for fuel or moving parts.
So this is what I found. Solar energy technology offers local electricity, which can be extremely useful in rural areas and off-grid homes. The non-residential part is really helpful as well. Roofs are empty, you're not using them for much. It's a technology that's becoming increasingly affordable and accessible. Solar energy empowers communities to take control over their energy production, reducing dependence on centralized utilities. So it's abundant and emits no greenhouse gases during the operation. So how much would this cost for an average household? So say if I were to get these for my house, what would be the cost for like a small family?
It's between $20,000 and $25,000.
Okay.
Is what it costs. But there's currently, actually talking about incentives, there's an interest-free loan from the government for $40,000.
Okay.
Interest-free over 10 years. That gets utilized a lot.
Yeah, and this is a 25-year product, so what we mean by that, these things will last a lot longer than 25 years, like 40 years is usable energy. So day one, they're like 97% efficient, and by year 40, they're 65% efficient. So it's like a baseball cap, you know when you throw it on your front lawn and you come back at the end of summer, it goes from like really black to like kind of faded. Same principles apply to silicone wafers that are inside the cells, but they age slowly. Now if you take a look at that from a financial perspective and bring it back to the 25-year term, this costs 25 grand, but electricity costs, not at current rates. At current rates, it would be a ballistic number. But on average rates, when the energy grid in Alberta was more stable, electricity costs in that same 25-year window is about $60,000 that a user has to spend. So the ROI on this is fantastic if you put them side by side. So.
Okay. I'm Stefan Blum. I'm the president of the Chinook Area Land Users Association, Kahlua, and a landowner in the southern region of the MD of Pincher Creek. So the first thing that you will notice in our place here is we have no electricity. There's no electric grid. So we need to produce our power in some ways.
Right.
So these are the 6 solar panels that power the property. And those solar panels feed their power into a solar controller, and I will get you there. And then we'll take what happens on the electrical side. But at the same time, we have a gas supply.
Right.
We are connected to the gas grid. And that's what you can see here. That's the gas supply that goes into our utility shed.
So why wouldn't you just have the solar panels?
Just the solar panels won't help because at night we need the energy. We can store it in a battery, but it won't help enough. So we need to have backup power at all times. I will talk about that as we go through the whole system. And so what I want to show you, this is the gas supply. And here's the electrical generator, the gas generator, that only kicks in. It's a backup generator when the battery power gets low, and then it kicks in order to charge the battery. So that's connected to the grid, and this is the backup to the backup. So if the natural gas doesn't work, I still have the possibility of a simple gasoline generator, right? So if nothing works, that works.
You got double backups.
Double backup.
Which
so
you
that's
need in a rural place like
in a rural place like that. This is what you need. So let's move over to the control center. Okay, so this is our little magic control room. It's not very fancy, but this is the solar controller that controls if the solar energy is being used directly because you have a load working or you operate your hairdryer, or whether it's stored in the batteries. These are the batteries. These are what makes the place work. And here is the inverter that converts the energy from the batteries from direct current into AC, which we need for all the appliances, right?
Okay.
So the interesting thing is, what you need to do is you need to convert the solar energy into the power you need. If the sun doesn't shine and the wind doesn't blow, and particularly now in the winter, these batteries don't help us very much. They don't help us very much because the power consumption is much, much higher because we are indoors. We need the heat, we need the furnace to run, we have TVs running, computers and everything. So the power demand is much, much higher than what the batteries can deliver.
Right.
So in an ideal scenario, we can charge a portion of them, but most of the time we need to charge them with a generator, which is now an interesting one. So now you use fossil energy to run the generator to charge the battery, which is kind of not quite what you think what the battery should do.
It feels like an oxymoron in some
Exactly.
ways, right?
And in the summer, it's so interesting. There's so much energy that we get from the solar panels. Yes, they charge the batteries, but we don't need that much power.
Right, because you're outside and
That's
you're
it,
doing
exactly.
things, and it's warm. Because
Yes.
obviously we're in a Canadian climate, so we use a lot more energy during the winter time.
Well, yes, and exactly. And if you think about costs, and this is why this system, interestingly, is a little microcosm of what we are discussing about. The whole system that you see here is something like $30,000. So the generator of that, and I could run the whole system just on the generator alone, was $6,000. Putting the solar panels on the roof here is a local power generation, and I use my internal grid. Perfect. If you do this on a house in a city area, use local solar development, solar installations. That makes sense to me.
I think it's why we have such a strong footing behind residential, because we feel like it's the source of where the power is being used, and it's a space that's not being used. Like your roof's not being used for anything else other than to maybe hold some snow on a winter day. And that's why, again, the residential side is more impactful from that for the end user.
Solar energy isn't without its challenges. The intermittency of sunlight and the need for energy storage solutions pose significant hurdles.
The power is supplied by different ways of generating energy. We all know there are steam generators, gas generators, solar and wind generators these days.
Backing up the grid for short periods of time, such as when the sun goes behind a cloud or a gust of wind drops down and there's not as much energy, they can fill in the gaps.
That's a benefit that natural gas and other fossil fuels have. They can be turned on and off demand 24/7 at any time and ramped up and down as needed. So we can look at this in the context of a solar power generation plant. A solar generation plant of approximately 100 megawatt installed capacity should be able to produce for 24 hours 2,400 megawatt hours a day. But can it do it? No, it can't. Half of the time it's dark. So there's no possibility that there's any power generation at night. So if you operate your hairdryer or you charge your electrical vehicle in the night, it won't be solar power that powers it.
Renewable energy sources such as wind and solar are inherently intermittent, meaning their output fluctuates with weather conditions. This variability challenges the grid's ability to balance supply and demand in real time. Wind and solar are heralded as key players in the transition to renewable power, boasting of impressive numbers of installed capacity worldwide. But behind the impressive numbers lies a sobering reality: the significant gap between installed generation capacity and actual output.
Let's break this down. I know we are both confused about the numbers here. It seems like everyone has their own set of figures and their own set of numbers. And I think for everybody, we need to just first define what is the definition of installed capacity.
Right.
So put simply, the definition of installed capacity is the amount of energy that a power station is able to produce.
Right.
Okay.
So that makes sense. So now what is actual output?
In this situation, it's the amount of production that has actually occurred. So it would be the net energy that is actually sent to the grid.
To operate your fridge, to turn on your lights, to use your hair dryer, etc.
Exactly.
So I think average people, I think we're going to speak for most people here, at least for us. I mean, I don't really care about what a wind industrial project could potentially generate. I just care about what is actually going to be in the grid system when I turn on my lights, if it's going to work.
Yeah, like it's what energy is actually usable, right? Like what can I access?
Natural gas operates differently from renewable sources like wind and solar. Its installed capacity aligns closely with its actual output because it can be ramped up or down swiftly in response to fluctuating demand. When the wind is calm or too strong, turbines may operate at reduced capacity or shut down altogether for technical reasons. As a result, wind energy typically performs at around 30% of its installed capacity. Similarly, solar energy's installed capacity does not directly correlate with its actual output. Solar panels generate electricity when exposed to sunlight, meaning their output fluctuates throughout the day and is zero at night.
So how do people arrive at the number of 100% renewables? I think this aspect is incredibly frustrating to me. I don't understand when I read an article, I see it all over, it's 100% renewables, 100% renewables. Clearly it's not 100% because we're still using natural gas, we're still using coal, we're still using all sorts of hydro to have base loads in our electricity grid. And also countries all over the world are firing up coal plants because they have grid instability. So it's not 100%.
Right, and there's too many variables at play within renewables that affect how efficient or effective they are.
Instead of analyzing renewable energy's performance over a full 24-hour life cycle, many companies and journalists focus on the peak hours when renewables are at their most productive. For instance, a wind turbine might generate a significant amount of energy at 11 a.m., reaching its maximum installed capacity.
Here is what we know. Wind energy has seen rapid growth in Alberta in the recent few years here. However, some critics are alleging that wind companies are exploiting the province's transmission infrastructure to conceal hidden costs on taxpayer energy bills.
That's interesting. So, okay, do you have an energy bill that we can look at?
Yeah, absolutely. So these hidden costs include energy charge, distribution charge, and transmission fees, which are passed on to consumers through their energy bills. So who's going to hold these energy companies accountable for this? I mean, this is what is really kind of tricky about this narrative, that public narrative that we're seeing in the news all the time, is that renewable energy is free. However, this certainly doesn't seem free to me. You know, when I look at an energy bill and I see all these sneaky little lines on there, that ain't free.
Right.
With this and the discrepancies, I think with the installed capacity and the actual output, it's hard not to feel like there's a level of deception here from the public narrative, or however this is started from.
Alberta, known for its vast oil and gas reserves, is at a crossroads in its energy transition. As renewable energy sources like wind and solar gain traction, the province's grid system faces unprecedented challenges. Alberta's grid system, historically reliant on coal, is undergoing a profound transformation with the rapid expansion of renewable energy capacity. While the shift promises environmental benefits, it also introduces new complexities.
So the next thing is, even during the day, the sun rises with solar irradiation of 0, then it reaches its peak at 10 o'clock in the morning until maybe 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it fades down to 0 in the afternoon. A solar power plant can only operate at peak power, at its installed capacity, for only 4 hours in a day. That's a small percentage. If you then add overcast days, cloudy days, and snow cover, you will find that solar power can only produce 20% of its installed capacity.
Managing the integration of renewables requires sophisticated grid infrastructure, which a lot of rural communities do not have.
For longer term storage, we need to look at other kinds of batteries that most people don't think about. Things like pumped hydroelectricity, where we can use excess electricity, say from wind and solar when things are really going well, and pump water up into behind a hydro dam and then let the water out when we need the electricity. So that's a form of battery as well, but it's a kinetic battery, not a chemical battery. So there's a lot of technology that has to go into the storage so that we can use wind and solar.
While wind energy holds promise, it's not without its detractors. Wind energy is often heralded as a clean and sustainable alternative to fossil fuels. But behind the sleek facade of wind turbines lies a complex web of environmental and social challenges. Word on the street is that locals in southern Alberta are having concern about these massive industrial wind projects. We were driving to a lady's house that has organized a lot of locals and has been very active in surrounding communities. So this is where the proposed wind turbines are going to go?
Right here. So where those turbines are right now, those two small ones that are spaced really far apart, that's part of the siting. And then over here, all the way to the river, do you see where the river valley is there?
Yeah.
So that's the Belly River. So this whole area from this road where we're sitting all the way south, according to the map that TransAlta gave us, we'll have about 30 of these turbines.
Oh, wow.
Then when we look behind us, past that Buffalo Jump, there'll be about another 15 to 17.
Wow.
Right behind there, yeah. So yeah, this conserved land, I believe it kind of cuts over to the west and then all this area right through here. My name is Angela Tabak, and I'm the chair of the Ripplinger Wind Concerned Citizens. We are a group of citizens that have basically been fighting a project that was proposed by TransAlta a year ago. It's been a year now. And what we're looking at is 47 Calgary Tower sized wind turbines just outside of Waterton National Park. So we've got some major issues with it, and yeah, we've been fighting this quite actively for a year now.
As you see over there in the mist,
Yeah.
this is Chief Mountain. Chief Mountain has been a landmark for generations in the past. See, a little bit over there. That's where they want to put these wind turbines. And the transmission line would run across all this land, all the way over, all the way there to St. Henry's. So it would essentially be an eyesore all the way through.
Right.
Right?
And what are those wind turbines over there?
These two wind turbines are at the HEIDI colonies right now.
Oh, okay.
These will be decommissioned as the big ones come on. So that would be the intention, right?
And where is there transmission lines connected to those power?
See, this is the amazing thing. Every single wind turbine needs to be connected, so it needs to be trenched, ducted, everything to connect to the grid. They are already connected to the grid, but they feed to another grid further down to the south, and that feeds into the existing grid already.
Okay.
So why build a new transmission line? Why not use, if you want to do it, why not use the existing infrastructure? And they're not interested in tying into the existing infrastructure. Instead, they want to break new ground across the fields. There's nothing over there, through the valley, everything. Dig new trenches, dig new corridors, cut all the trees, and all of that just for that one project.
But when it comes to the siting, you know, it's really difficult when you live in an area just outside of a national park on the eastern slopes in Alberta. It's really difficult to understand how anyone could drive through this area and look at it and go, hey, you know, this would be a really great place for an industrial wind generation project. I just shake my head. It's been a year now and I still can't go outside, go for a walk without shaking my head in unbelief that somebody could look at the nature of this area and say, yeah, let's put this up.
What we hope for is TransAlta sees some daylight here. It isn't worth their while. They'll go someplace else. Now, do I believe that's going to happen without some real pressure on our part? No, because they're in the business of making money, and there's companies out there in the business of buying them up, so they got the carbon credits and all that good kind of stuff. So TransAlta does not decide, because when we asked them to come down to see what effect you're going to have on the community, a couple came down and they drove around with us, and they said we were the only opposition they've ever had. They haven't seen opposition before, okay? The province needs to understand that, and I think they do. There's been millions of dollars spent trying to preserve and protect this area. So what are we doing now, opening this up and affecting it like it is? Between Nature Conservancy, how much money's been spent there, the water biosphere, the whole area and things like this. And so there's just, and tourism and Alberta tourism and everything else, there's so much money's been spent trying to preserve that. What are we doing now, guys? This is ridiculous. So that's part of the argument.
We realized quite quickly at the very first public engagement session, we asked some of TransAlta's employees that were there, we asked them directly, have you been to this community? Have you been to this community? Because the area is dotted with a lot of small hamlets and villages, very historical in nature, that have been here since before Alberta ever became a province. And they didn't even know what we were talking about. And we're talking about areas, places that are like a 10-minute drive from where they want to put this huge industrial project. They've never been to it. Are they taking this serious when it comes to the siting? They don't even know really where they're placing this project because they haven't taken 10 extra minutes to drive down the road and see exactly what it is that they're going to be doing to this area.
Maybe just give me a breakdown of what is the main issue here. Are we looking at the placement of the project that is proposed by TransAlta, or is it the industry itself that you're concerned about?
I'm not concerned about the industry. I'm concerned about the area. We are living here in a little pocket that is so unique, not only in Canada, not only in North America, I think in the whole world.
Yeah, well, what is particularly unique about this area? If you look at the eastern slopes here north of the Waterton Park, you have essentially 6 mountain ranges parallel, and they have a water creek and the river that comes out of those water valleys, and all of those water valleys then combine to one creek that is here, the Drywood Creek in the north, and another one in the south that comes from the Waterton River. So essentially all the wildlife corridors are combined to two corridors. One is the Drywood Creek, one is the river that feed into the Waterton Reservoir. And you can imagine all the wildlife migration that happens along all of those river valleys combined to two that make it all the way out here to the west, into the western and into the eastern prairies.
Obviously have expressed your concerns to TransAlta as well.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Yes.
And we have expressed those concerns not only to TransAlta, we expressed those concerns to the Alberta government, and the Alberta government has come back to us and say, well, okay, but can you define a go zone rather than a no-go zone?
What are the solutions to be moving forward?
Yes.
Because obviously what we have discussed formally is we have a mix of different energy sources in our power grid, and this is going to be something that is going to be moving forward. This is what we're going to be needing for demand.
The main concern is that the unique open spaces and viewscapes and open area that makes this area so unique will be disturbed forever.
Destroyed forever. When
You
it's
will
once
have
there,
transmission lines, you will have power turbines, This is not what this area was. And if it comes to future generations, I think we should preserve this area to the maximum extent to make future generations understand what this land once was.
If you put an industry here, all this will be gone. It will not only be gone for us as landowners, it will be gone for generations to come, and that would be very sad.
As the world races towards renewable energy solutions, the dark side of wind and solar energy production remains shrouded in secrecy. Behind the glossy facade of green technology lies a hidden truth: the staggering environmental footprint of manufacturing. As we peel back the layers of deception and expose the devastating consequences of the global manufacturing footprint of wind and solar energy, we, the West, are responsible for these environmental problems. The production of wind turbines and solar panels relies heavily on resource-intensive processes, including mining, refining, and manufacturing. These activities generate significant pollution and contribute to environmental degradation. The extraction of raw materials such as rare earth metals and silicon places a heavy toll on ecosystems and local communities. In the quest for renewable energy, cobalt has emerged as a critical component in lithium-ion batteries, powering everything from electric vehicles to smartphones. But beneath the surface lies a harrowing truth: the human cost of cobalt extraction in Africa.
Africa is a continent that not only suffers from the resource curse, but also has been a continent that has been historically seen bad mining and energy practices within the continent. It starts from something that we at the Chamber, and me personally, I am very passionate about: eradication of child labor. We've seen a lot in African mines where young girls and young boys between the age of 10 and 15, they are mining, and these mines, these raw materials are being used by multinational corporations. They shouldn't be in mines, they should be in classrooms. They should be reading and hoping for a better practice in life. How we've managed revenues coming out of these resources, having a bad practice, and also our inability to process this mine and create industries where it has just basically been an export area for maybe China or other countries. It has really not helped the continent. And how we've been stewards of the environment in a lot of mining towns, nothing has been done. Education. So we have seen our own fair share of really bad corporate responsibility practices, and it has not been very helpful in some instances to the continent and to everyday people that need mining to work for Africa.
What regions of Africa struggle with instability and corruption the most?
I would say the entire continent, sadly so. I mean, if you look at South Africa, corruption is still part of the problem in South Africa when we come into dealing with mining and even electrification. Look at the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo. It is strife with corruption, instability, and some mismanagement of these resources and poor governance. Look at the Niger Delta in Nigeria. Instability, bad governance has really kept resources from going into everyday people in building roads, bridges, schools, healthcare facilities that everyday people would really want to benefit from. So corruption has been a scourge in Africa's development of its natural resources, mining included, and we cannot underlook that. It has to be something where we got to stamp it out and really have a tough hand on this issue.
Mining, a cornerstone of renewable energy development, takes on vastly different forms in Canada and Africa. Alberta's mines adhere to a set of different practices aimed at promoting responsible resource development environmental stewardship, and community engagement.
So what I want to do is just take you through Grassy as you probably know it, and Grassy as I want it to be. We want to design a way to earn the trust of Albertans about how we manage water and dust and selenium and fish. And then as we prove that we can manage these things to everyone's satisfaction, then that would earn us the right to then grow the footprint, because now we know we can manage it.
The elephant in the room is selenium.
Is
selenium.
Yes.
And I like very much what I've heard today, the work that you're doing. The reason I'm concerned is that we're like many people here, we're cow-calf operators. We've been trying to keep calves alive for over 100 years, many people here longer than that. And all I know is that we're selenium deficient. I have to give a half to 1 cc to a calf sometimes. And if it's cold and I pull that punter too much and I give him 2, I come out 2 hours later and I've got a dead calf. So, you know, selenium is a big capital S word for me. And I think that's where you really have to put a lot of attention. What you're doing to eliminate that, and that there's no problem. We're not in Saskatchewan, we're right here closer to the situation. So I applaud the work and the studies you're doing. Find a solution and you've got my vote.
Thank you. You got to have a cascading system where you've got plan A, plan B, plan C. You know, and obviously, well, not obviously because they didn't do it, but a filtration plant fits into that cascading water management. So A, understand where the selenium's coming from. B, one of the things we want to do is a pilot test. So you would get some rock, some real rock from the mine, and put it into a real dump and water it and see how much water goes through it and how much selenium you get out of it. And we want to do that. And we're hoping the AR lets us at some point. Understand how much you've got to deal with. And then that then goes into your treatment program.
Now, it wasn't that long ago that the population of the Crozes Pass was substantially larger than it is now. And they had, you know, a couple local coal mines, or the guys that drive out to BC to work at the mines there. But then as legislation changes and how just the world has went, all the local sawmills have been bought up, so now we don't really produce anything. We have one place here, I think, that still makes fence posts. You know, even like the little town of Lumbrick here. It's here because of a coal mine. It was just over the hill here. And they had stockyards down on the east end when all the local cattlemen used to push all their cattle down and load them up into rail cars. Yeah, here's Lumbrick.
And do you find it frustrating when people from out of town kind of tell you how to live your lives out here?
Well, I have never once ever gone to a city to protest their storm drains or destroying viable, good agricultural land. It's my cousin, she works there.
I love this. Best tour ever. If the coal mining were to open up here, what would that mean for locals?
For locals, you'd be straight off the bat, there'd be an influx of guys and girls that work in Sparwood North coming back to Alberta, so there'd be less travel. That'd be way better family life, increased local economy, local businesses. It'd be definitely good for locals.
And do you feel like Northback has done a good job with building a relationship in the community?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. The work they've done on the golf course, preempting the construction of the mine in there. That's great. You know, the pass hasn't seen an influx of money, production, or making anything new for years. So yeah, they're great.
Right now,
we have like a season. On summer, we have a really good summer, a busy season, but on winter, it's really slow. And probably we need to have more people around. If we have a new mine or something, new people is coming, and new people is gonna stop here and gonna find some place to live.
After the coal policy's decision to stop all coal mining and exploration, people started losing their jobs. So citizens came together and we made Citizens Supportive of Crow's Nest Coal. It's a nonprofit organization that supports the responsible mining of our resources here in the past, which is metallurgical coal. So met coal is used for making steel, which we use in everything from wheelchairs to trucks. And it also be used for making all the windmills and solar panels. So the need for met coal isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
What concerns do the locals have about the development of the coal mining project in the Crow's Nest Pass area?
Well, I think from a local perspective, many of the people here work in the coal mines and they understand coal mining because we've been doing it for so long, and many families work on the BC side of the border. However, the concerns they would have, of course, would be for the environment and for the water. But we know that it can be mitigated. But I mean, our kids, our families, we swim in the rivers, we fish, we hike, we mountain bike. That's why we live here. So that's certainly a concern, but I think it's not as much a concern when you start thinking of things like dust control, noise control, sort of the general impact of the busyness and all that. So I think people are cautious about that, and optically they want to ensure that the beauty stays in the Crow's Nest Pass. And I think the companies understand that, and I think they have a commitment to mitigate it as much as possible.
I think increase of trade with Canada and wealthy countries is important. Those democratic values that we cherish the most, fighting corruption, increasing transparency, driving up participation, women in energy, women participating in our democratic institutions. You have to work with countries that have that foundation at their root cause of their democratic traditions.
In contrast, mining practices in many African countries are characterized by informal and artisanal methods, often lacking the oversight and regulations seen in developing regions. Mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo, owned by Chinese companies, are engaged in exploitive practices that have severe impacts on both local communities and the environment. While Canada and Africa both rely on mining for economic growth, their approaches and outcomes differ significantly. By learning from each other's successes and challenges, we can work together towards a more sustainable and equitable future for mining worldwide.
Let's move beyond aid, because your mindset of looking at us and thinking that you can just do handouts and give us aid, it is only feeding into the egos of the Canadian elites that want to look at themselves as doing good to those poor Africans. We don't want that. We want you to participate in trade, in commerce, because that gives us dignity.
The disposal and decommissioning of solar panels and wind turbines poses a looming environmental crisis.
We get people that want to bring that stuff in here, and he says, no, we're not taking that because there's no use for it. There's nothing we can do with it.
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he says, no, we're not taking any panels in.
Gosh.
And we haven't taken any windmill blades in for a long time, too. And again, I don't know if there just hasn't been any, or if he's said, no, we got what we've got, we're not taking any more.
Mm-hmm. Well, it makes sense because you don't want to have these piles sitting here forever, right?
We're a customer service here too. I mean, that's what we do. We take garbage. We're a landfill, but bottom line is you got to draw the point somewhere.
The lifespan of solar panels and wind turbines is limited, typically ranging from 20 to 30 years. When these devices reach the end of their operational life, they must be decommissioned and disposed of properly to prevent environmental harm. However, many countries lack proper recycling infrastructure, leading to the accumulation of waste in landfills and informal recycling operations.
The reclamation was a big issue. He did bring that up. What's good for the oil and gas industry is obviously good enough for the wind industry. In the oil and gas industry, when you go drill a well today as operator, you need to put all the capital up for future reclamation of that wellhead. It costs $500,000 to do a single reclamation of a turbine. This has recently been done. They haven't done any reclamation except for Cowley Ridge. Cowley Ridge just outside of Pincher Creek. They're running about $500,000 a turbine. So what I said in the submission was, you're putting in 47, that's $23 million that you put into a trust with the Alberta government. You get nothing for it, you just put that up front. And in 30 years' time, when you go to do the reclamation, that money's there available to draw down. The industry today, the oil and gas industry, they have to do that. Most wells are 250, 300,000 reclamation, depending if it's critical sour or not, but 500,000 is, now, that's a small turbine. So the reality with the 7.6 megawatts, we're probably looking at perhaps closer to 700.
In the heart of Alberta, where the winds sweep across vast plains and the sun shines bright, a community debate is taking place. This is the story of how solar and wind energy are reshaping the province's energy landscape.
Our argument is there are clearly some issues in the province when it comes to rules around siting. Obviously, we take issue with the environmental requirements. I say requirements because they're a joke.
This is not an area where this technology should be established. It is my understanding and it's my desire to protect this area from industrial developments in order to allow future generations to see what it once was.
On the other side of the debate, Alberta's municipalities and some First Nation communities are tapping into a range of renewable energy sources that will diversify Alberta's energy portfolio. These initiatives are creating income and invigorating regional economies. Nonetheless, can this momentum be sustained and thrive without support from both federal and provincial governments? Solar and wind energy presents many possibilities for Alberta and its inhabitants. We are a province of entrepreneurs and innovators.
A lot of people have been working really hard for 20, 25 years now to build out the capacity and the actual energy delivery from renewables. But during that time period, all they've really accomplished is to augment fossil fuels.
As stewards of our land, we recognize the importance of investing in renewable energy. It's not just about reducing emissions, it's about building resilience and prosperity for generations to come.
We also believe in renewables. We believe in getting a cleaner environment, but we don't want to breathe clean air in the dark.
As we conclude our exploration into the world of renewable energy, it's essential to confront the complexities and challenges that accompany its rise, particularly in regions like Africa, where mining of rare earth minerals and cobalt extraction takes place. As demand for renewable energy continues to grow, it's imperative that we address the social and environmental injustices associated with its production. This requires collaboration between governments, corporations, and communities to enforce regulations and promote ethical practices. How can we advocate for a sustainable energy future without considering the entire supply chain? Is it not contradictory for Western nations to promote wind and solar energy while transferring emissions to other regions across the globe?